speaking of this bracket, I thought it was cool that the drivers took a like they were thinking about it.
They embraced
I think
yeah.
Brad was the one who initiated the conversation on Twitter last week, right? And then I passed by William at the Better Half Dash running last week, and he was like, "Hey, coming on the podcast." So they were,
he was confident then he was going to win it.
They were both thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw that Brad was like 1 second behind William with 5 or 6 to go, I'm like, he's got to be. He sees him. Brad is pushing, to get there. Interesting enough that I was pushing when I was behind William Byron, which is why I ran into the inside wall down the front straightaway. I talked about it before the weekend even started that like getting better at road courses in general was going to be a process for me. I knew that wasn't going to happen overnight. I was very, very happy with our performance this weekend. Obviously, we were, our lap times were good in practice. We weren't like top of the charts or anything, but we could tell that we had speed when I could hit it right. And then qualifying, we had 3 laps all in the 77 bracket, which is, only one that did that. And then we led 30-some laps and won a stage. So we didn't leave there with nothing. We did get 1 bonus point, which is like having 1 more spot up in the standings at the end of the regular season. But this is what kind of, I didn't expect it to go down like this, but this is kind of the process it takes, right? Is that, nailing 1 lap and nailing 110 is 2 totally different things. And I just, it's just usually I like kind of run off track or I have a bad restart or something that kind of, makes me lose track position most of the time on road courses. But I felt like I really put together a solid day all around. Now, again, we lost track position when that caution came out, which, I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, listen, I know that NASCAR probably was dying for a caution during that time. Me and Truex had pulled away from the field for, I think, 12, 13 seconds.
Yeah,
it was a ways. I didn't put it this way. When we were leaving turn 11, I saw the other third place start to come off of turn 10. So it was a ways for sure. And
are you saying you don't know how you feel about a caution being thrown?
Well, it's right in the middle of yes, because for one, that pit road is different than other pit roads. There's no direct entryway for a car to end up on pit lane from the racetrack. So if you see a bunch of racetracks where you can spin off a turn 4 and then end up on pit lane, here it's completely blocked off. So no cars will be coming on pit lane. It's right in the middle of pit lane. It's right in the middle of a pit sequence which jumbles up the whole field. I mean, it certainly didn't do us any favors. But you got to think that like NASCAR has officials at the entrance of pit lane. They could perhaps say, nobody's coming. Somebody run out there and take 5 seconds to go get that tire.
This is my CODA idea.
But like even on, say IMSA or whatever, you have local yellows, right? Like just create, hey, heads up, guys, there's a tire on pit lane. If cars are coming in, I get it, but like pit road
we were
was
in a
pretty
pit cycle.
Yes and no. Like when you come to strategy at Sonoma, you don't see a bunch of cars coming at one time. It's a few cars every now and then. So I get it. I mean, I get it. You probably, to be consistent, got to throw a caution there, which they did. I just hate it because it took away our track position and obviously mired us back in 10th for the rest of the day.
Yeah, well, isn't that kind of a battle you'd have anyway? Because there were no stage breaks. So I guess if you could plan it so you're always restarting up front at the beginning of the next stage. But typically, the leaders will lose their track position, like Truex, and have to.
Well, the ones that
back
pitted that flipped in front of us when that caution came right before the end of the stage were ones that said, "Okay, we're not running in the top 10 anyway.
Right.
Let's go ahead and pit here in case a caution falls. Whoever has not pit now has to restart behind us, and we only have a couple laps on our tires." So really, if you look at the guys that finished up front, with the exception of Truex, McDowell, Chase was he was up front for most of the day, if I can remember right. They were guys that flipped. They were running mid-pack, pitted, caught the caution. I mean, Kyle Busch comes to mind for sure. But yeah, it's so hard to pass. I just cannot believe how hard it is to pass. When you get near someone in these cars, your car loses so much grip. I mean, the pace I was setting out front, I was cruising, and me and Truex were gone. I was gone from Truex. He gained a little bit on that green flag cycle. He was a little better on the short run there, but then in the long run, I think it was about 10 to go or so in the state. No, maybe a little less. I didn't drive back. I was right 2 car lengths from him. I came back to him a little bit, and I'm like, man, we've got the 2 best cars. But man, the difference is that the caution comes. He had a good stop. He came out first on pit lane. I came out fourth. That put him with the 2 rows in front of me. I got jammed up by cars with tires in front of me. His lane went. Next thing you know, he's 6 spots in front of me, and I'm like, we run 1 lap on the. I was just on his ass, 13 seconds ahead of third, and this is just the way it ended up. And now I'm mired back here. You just couldn't pass. You could pass, but you had to be so significantly better than the car in front of you to do it. That's what was just so surprising about it. So,
what I'm curious though is with you talking about losing track position, is that this Sonoma race didn't have stage breaks, right? So you didn't have the regimented caution at 25, 50, whatever the laps were. You were leading the race at the end of stage 1. I assume, had we had stage breaks, you probably would have stayed out to collect that playoff point, or would you have pitted to stay up front to start stage 2?
Well, that's a good point.
We would have,
since we were leading the race, we would have probably pitted and gave up the stage points.
Okay.
And then there would have been guys that wanted to get stage point, so they would have flipped them to the back, and then we would have flipped back towards the front.
Okay. So
I would have rather had a shot to win than stage points, for sure.
Got it.
But the way that we're doing with no stage breaks now, it actually lets the race play out more naturally. And so you don't have this flip-flopping. But the race has a potential to get boring. I mean, it does. I mean, I know that Harvick was, one that really kind of advocated for this no stage breaks. And I totally get the reason for it, right? It allows you to determine your own strategy, which that's why those guys flipped that caution on us, right? Is they played a different strategy than we did, and it paid off. I totally get that for sure. But you have a chance with no stage breaks of this thing just going green. Had the caution not come for that tire, we could have been caution. Well, and then you had my wreck. So,
yeah.
I mean, there was not much else to it.
Do you think caution should be thrown for drivers knocking the tire barriers out of the way in turn 11?
Well, they just need to make a more permanent thing there. I mean, we're not even racing on the surface anymore. I saw, Brett Griffin and those guys talking about it on Twitter, but I agree with them. The problem is we're all searching for the paint on the racetrack. So someone keeps knocking the tires further right, and now we've got our whole car on the paint. And that just paint, while it is good for the grip of your car, it adds grip to all cars that do it. So such as turn 4, for instance. If you look, there's a big DoorDash label off of turn 4. Well, as soon as we got to it, it was like instant traction. So your car's sliding through the corners, and then bam, our car gains a ton of grip. Well, that's a passing zone, or it was one. So usually guys would get terrible runs off of turn 4, and if you were close to someone that got sideways, you can then charge and make a move on them into turn 7. But with this big old grip strip of paint that they put down on the racetrack, it levels all of our cars out. Like, excess grip for next-gen cars is not a good thing. It makes all of our cars run the same speed. It takes away a passing zone. We got to be a little bit more aware of where we're putting paint on some of these racetracks. Like, I mean, they could have shaded it a little bit more off track and not messed up, the advertising that they had, but they painted all the way down into the track surface, basically.
So you're saying that one of the passing zones at Sonoma, this was one of them, and it was kind of affected by the way the track is painted.
Yes, absolutely. It was. And then, like we're talking about turn 11, we keep moving the track limits, right? Like, as you see, those tires just keep getting knocked further in. And that allows us to put, it used to be those tires would be on the rumble strips, or it's not even rumble strips, by the way. Like, it's just built up paint. And so we're not even running on the actual surface anymore. If you put us back on the surface of turn 11, cars would not handle as good. But right now, we all go in there and we shoot for that paint, and our car just literally goes from sliding to grip, and then we take off all the same speed because our cars all have the same amount of grip. So you got to put us back on the racing surface where it's slicker, where car handling will matter. I think that passing was reduced a little bit by how the track limits in turn 11 and then the paint in turn 4.